Welcome to the SELLability Knowledge Center and this week's webcast. This week we're going to talk about a particular objection, and that's the one where the prospect tells you, I need to think about it. This is a common one, and most of us, I don't believe, like the objection too much because we invest a lot of time in our presentation or the education of the client or the prospective client, and at the end the client now comes up with, well, I need to think about it. So what do you do to handle this? That's what we're going to talk about this week. So the first thing is, from the very beginning of the initial contact, you want to be interested in the client, in that prospect. Many times the salesperson, what they're most interested in is making the sale. And in this regard, the salesperson then comes across to the prospective client as exactly that. And we've all, as buyers, experienced the salesperson who basically just, okay, so they're trying to rush you through or trying to get to the sale, or they're in many ways really assuming they know everything about you without really finding out anything about you, your product, your company, or anything like that. So from the very beginning, one of the first keys is to really be interested in the prospective client. Let's find out about them, okay, especially from that initial contact. Remember, in this stage, you actually are trying to build trust. It's very, very important, okay? Now, I'm going to give you a question to ask from the very beginning, and what we're going to talk about is, what are you interested about when you meet that customer for the first time, or they're calling in and you're doing this on the phone? What will be one of the first things you're interested in? And I would suggest that you're interested in why they called in the first place. So they've now picked up the phone or made an appointment, or decided to come to see you, or they've decided to actually make that call. We're interested to find out why. So you may have promotion that goes out, or emails, or from the website, or that somebody may have told them about you. So the first thing to be interested in, or one of the first questions is, what caused you to actually make that call today, or what was the reason that caused you to make that initial contact, and find out all about that. They may tell you, okay, I saw a piece of promo, and that may be the reason. They may tell you that, well, a friend told me that you're a really good company, and that was why I called. All of this is very important information, and it starts to build a trust or a communication with that particular customer. Now, the details of this are very, very important. So it's not enough just to, you meet the customer and then they say, okay, well, I saw your ad, or I picked up the phone because I saw this promotional advertisement that you had. So if as a salesperson, if you just take that and go, then it's really not enough. What the important thing is in the details. So another question that you may ask, or the next question you may ask after they've now told you, okay, I found out about you from a promotional material that I received in the mail, is you want to find out, what was it about that promotional piece that they liked the most, or what was it about the promotional piece that caused them to want to call, and you want to find out all about that. This is going to give you additional information that will be important to really understanding everything about that particular prospective client or that prospective customer. So very important to, okay, so if they referred by a friend, okay, so find out, were they interested and they'd ask a friend about it, or how did that occur? So you want to get as much detail as possible, and again, it shows that you're really caring enough to find out what they think or what's important to them. And that's very, very important. I think all of us in the buying process, if we meet a salesperson who really genuinely cares to find out about us and what we're interested in, and what we're thinking about, that immediately starts to build that trust, and all of us are more ready to have further communication, and that's really what that's about, right? Now, taking it even further, obviously you want to continue to build a very high level of communication, right? A key question to ask is, how long have they been thinking about buying a product or service like yours? This is a very key question. And you'll be amazed at some of the information you might get. Maybe they've been thinking about it for 6 months. Maybe they've been thinking about it for a year. Maybe they're thinking about it for 2 years. And nobody really ever asked them the question. Now, the magic in this as well is the fact that the customer themselves may not realize how long they've been thinking about it. And in fact, by you asking the question, they're going to realize, wow, I've been thinking about this, doing this for like 2 years or 3 years. You may find out that they've been thinking about it for a long period of time and nobody ever asked them the question. So it's a very key and important question and very powerful, for you in the sales process. Now, a follow-up question that'll even take this further, right? You could ask a question, let's say they told you that they've been thinking about it for 6 months. Okay, so get them to tell you about that. What was why were they interested in the first place? You're going to, again, get more details. Be very interested in, what was it that caused them to start to think about it at that time? Was there an event or, some kind of problem they were trying to solve or, something like that. You're really trying to find out as much information about that as possible. And then, again, staying interested, what you want to find out now is, well, what was it that prevented them from moving forward at that time? You could ask a question like, just because I'm really curious, maybe they've been thinking about it for more than a year. You then ask, was there anything that prevented you from moving forward at that time? Or, because I'm really curious, what was it that, caused you to continue to think about it rather than moving forward? Any of that detail or information is just critical, very powerful, and again, shows that you're caring about them, and that's the most important thing. Now, and again, it's talking about, or I'm talking about basically trust. Establishing that trust is key, and all this interest and caring is exactly what you would want as a customer as well. Okay, and that's really what it's all about. Now, handling the objection, I need to think about it. So this is really the topic of the webcast. But the beginning part of that care, that trust, that interest is really what sets up the overall handling for this particular objection. So now we've all heard this objection, okay? So you've done your presentation, you spent a good deal of time, you feel like you've educated them well, and you get to the end and the customer says, I need to think about it. And you're like, well, I just had presented this to you for 2 hours, what do you need to think about, type thing, which is obviously not the right response, right? But now remember, you just now, having been really interested in that initial contact, right, found out from the customer why they were interested, what caused them to call, was there a piece of promo, was there a referral, or how it occurred, and you've also just found out how long they've been thinking about it. So now, if they've actually been thinking about buying a similar product or service for 6 months or more, that objection then becomes quite easy to handle. If you didn't know that, it would be hard to handle, right? But if the fact that you've now found that out in the beginning of the presentation, right? What you need to remember here is that the objection itself is just part of the overall sales resistance. They're resisting the sale, right? And what you're trying to create is sales acceptance. So you're not going to go against them at this point. It's more the first step in the handling is really to understand, okay, I could see where you're coming from, or you just understand the fact that they're needing to think about it some more, or that's their communication, okay? After you've done that, then all you really have to do at that point is remind them that in the beginning, when we first talked, that they've actually told you that they've been thinking about it for 6 months, a year, 2 years, and go over the fact that you as a salesperson who's now established trust with them and cares about them, it would be really in a way a violation of your own integrity as a salesperson to let them continue not to have that product or service, knowing that they've already been thinking about it for 6 months, a year, 2 years. It's at this point quite a point of caring on the salesperson's from the salesperson, because if you let that person go and continue to think about it, they may end up actually thinking about it for another 6 months or another year, and you'll meet them again somewhere else and ask them, well, did you ever buy that product or service? And they never have, right? Or what may happen is the other salesperson that they met actually just continued to be interested in them and then completed the sale and they bought it from somebody else. So your job as the salesperson is really to get them through this. And this objection that they have to think about it becomes just quite easy and quite easy to handle if you've done your work in the beginning and know exactly how long they've been thinking about it. So hopefully that makes sense. In summary, that particular objection is easy to handle as long as in the beginning you've now found out, okay, why they called in the first place, how long they've been thinking about it, what caused them not to move forward at that time, and from there you're going to find out obviously more about why they want the product or service, why did they particularly need it. You're going to get all of that information. And then at the end of your education or your presentation, when they say, wow, okay, I just think I need to think about it some more, you're going to understand that objection and then take them right back to the fact that, listen, you've been thinking about this for 6 months as you've told me, and the longer you continue to think about it is the longer you're not going to have the benefits of my product or service. So at this point, it becomes best if we just go ahead and move forward, and very rapidly then you're going to enjoy the benefits that you've been thinking about for the last six months to a year. Hopefully you enjoyed this week's webcast, and we'll see you next week during that webcast. Also remember to download the exercise of the week, which goes along with this webcast. And again, just as a reminder, it's a continuous improvement system, which means you're continuing to practice, and practice. I'll see you next week.